Law school life is challenging and stressful. Good thing you're not alone. Hi everyone, welcome back to this podcast, and I'm your host, Tina. I am the founder and content creator behind Totally Legal, and I'm here to help future lawyers like you and myself prepare for and navigate their law school journey ahead. Hello, my fellow future aspiring lawyers. Welcome back. We are now on our 7th podcast episode, and thank you so much for tuning in. Now, for this episode, we are going to talk about law school bedtime routine and some simple hacks or tips in order to have a consistent one. Parang na-imagine ko na yung mga mukha ninyo ngayon sa mga oras na to, na parang you're like, Tina, seriously? Law school bedtime routine? Uso pa ba yun? Halos hindi na nga nakakatulog yung mga law students na tulad natin. Well, please kindly just hold your horses, my friends. I completely understand. Kasi naman, throughout the years, we've been made to believe and assimilate the stereotypical image of how a law student should be. Sleep-deprived, caffeine addict, and with loud and proud eye bags. Unfortunately, this should not be the case. As much as possible, law students like us must endeavor to prioritize our health, which includes getting enough sleep as much as we can. And getting adequate or meaningful sleep, my friends, actually depends, among others, to our bedtime routine. Kaya yes, there is and there should be a thing called law school bedtime routine because, believe it or don't, you need to have one to achieve optimal health that will enable you to finish law school, be a lawyer, and reap the fruits of your labor. Kasi at the end of the day, masasayang lahat ng pinaghirapan at paghihirapan pa natin kung magkakasakit lang tayo at bibigay tayo ng dahil sa sobrang puyat. Okay, so as I was saying, keeping a consistent bedtime routine in law school is important for our overall health as law students. But yeah, I know and I completely understand that it could be quite hard to do, especially at first. Kasi naman, ang dami-dami nating ginagawa din talaga sa law school. Ang dami-dami nating babasahin. Andyan yung stress na kailangan you have to finish this task for, within a specific period of time because there's a deadline that you have to beat. I completely understand that kasi I'm a working law student. I know exactly how stressful and awful it can be. When you have so many deadlines ahead of you, you tend to have more sleepless and restless nights. Tas dun siya nagsisimula eh. Paiba-iba ka ng tulog. Depende kung gaano kabigat yung ginagawa mo for that specific day. Lalo kung working law student ka, parang tuwing gabi ka na lang kasi minsan tuwing gabi ka na lang halos nakakapag-aral within the week. Now, these prevent you from achieving consistent law school bedtime routine and sleeping pattern. Ngayon, pag ganun yung nangyari, these ultimately result to sleep deprivation in the long run, and that can jeopardize both your productivity and, more importantly, your health and well-being. Diba? It also prevents you from having meaningful sleep. Para siyang vicious cycle na hindi ka nakakatulog, hindi maganda yung tulog mo, puyat ka, pagoda ka, and all that. So, anong mangyayari? Your body will not have adequate opportunity to rejuvenate itself and get energized for the next day. Tapos, ang mangyayari pa, your sleep-wake cycle becomes too erratic to handle. As someone who used to experience all of these, I know how stressful and worrisome it can be. So, allow me to share some tips and strategies I implemented in the past, which has since allowed me to achieve a consistent bedtime routine in law school. However, they may not be your cup of tea, but there's no harm in considering them or giving them a shot, right? But before we proceed, let me just give a disclaimer on this. This episode might contain some general health information. This notwithstanding, please be informed that whatever medical information that you may hear from this episode is in no way a medical advice and should not be treated as such. Also, you must not rely on this podcast episode for medical opinion or advice or use this as an alternative to a licensed physician's opinion. If you have specific questions about this subject matter on sleep or bedtime routine or any other health-related matter, kindly consult a physician. And finally, if you are or think you are suffering from any medical condition that stops you from achieving consistent bedtime routine, you should consult your doctor immediately. So, if you are interested on these strategies, grab some snacks, coffee, or tea because this episode is going to be long and jam-packed with sleep routine information and tips. Ready? Let's start. So for our first tip, I highly suggest that you increase your physical activity. I just want to share, when the COVID-19 pandemic happened, we all know that we were put under ECQ. The government enforced strict quarantine protocols that prevented people from leaving their houses. Tapos employers adopted the work from home scheme, actually hanggang ngayon naman. And then law schools switched to remote or online learning or classes. These developments have certainly decreased my physical activity in the first few months of the pandemic because I do work and study law at the comfort of my own room or home. Not that it's bad though, actually masaya siya. However, this whole new setup is so different from my office law school commute routine every single day before the pandemic happened. So with the sudden decrease in physical activity, it didn't come as a surprise when I eventually experienced having difficulty in sleeping. Itong difficulty of sleeping na to, when I say this, I'm talking about sleeping at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. Like I was literally sleeping as the sun rises. Tirik na yung araw. Doon pa lang ako matutulog. Buti sana if I'm employed in the BPO industry or somewhere else na ganito talaga yung schedule. Pero hindi. I was just there. Kumukuha ako ng tulog like around 1 to 4 a.m. doing endless scrolling on my phone, hoping na baka dahil doon makatulog ako. Actually, pag-uusapan natin mamaya kung bakit maling-mali yung ginagawa ko na yon. Tapos lahat na tinry ko, nagbilang na ako ng mga kung ano-ano sa isip ko. I tried to clear my mind. Lahat, ginawa ko na. Pati essential oils, tinry ko na rin. Hindi ako makaramdam ng antok. Kasi, alam ko sa sarili ko, parang hindi rin kasi ako pagod. Wala akong ganung pagod na pre-pandemic pagod because of my pre-pandemic schedule or pre-pandemic routine. Achieving consistent law school bedtime routine or sleeping patterns kasi starts from your ability to sleep easily at night. Right? Kasi doon naman tayo talaga nagkakaroon ng problema yung kailangan mo lang kasi talaga matulog. Matulog ka, doon magsa-start na. Well, we have other issues about keeping yourself asleep, no? Pero lahat tayo halos, yun na nagiging problem natin, yung mag-start tayong matulog. And you know what? Recent studies suggest that a person can easily sleep at night and he can sleep better if he gets at least 150 minutes of exercise or physical activity a week. This only goes to show that when we maintain an active lifestyle, we don't just make our heart and muscles happy, we become well-rested too after. Now, is 150 minutes per week a lot? Actually, hindi. Try nyo siyang i-divide. Kahit, let's say, siguro 5 days a week, 150 divided by 5, lalabas lang na 30 minutes na physical activity lang yon. 'Di ba? Yun pa ba, maipagdadamot pa ba natin sa sarili yon? It's like, around 20 to 30 minutes per day lang. So, minsan mas matagal ka pa nga nagfe-Facebook or nanonood sa YouTube or sa Netflix, 'di ba? So, I think kayang-kaya mong ma-achieve to. Tip number 2. Stay away from coffee 10 hours before your intended sleeping time. Studies reveal that caffeine negatively affects a person's sleep. Accordingly, experts recommend that we must stop drinking 10 hours before hitting the sack because our body gets rid of caffeine only 10 hours from intake. So that pretty much makes sense, diba? Unfortunately, most law students would like to pull off an all-nighter. Kaya ang ginagawa talaga nila, iinom sila ng kape just a few hours before their intended sleeping time. Kasi parang gusto pa rin nilang ihabol. Tatapusin ko to kahit mapuyat-puyat ako, kahit hindi na ako matulog. So yon, nangyayari yon. Actually, nangyari din sa akin yon. And for sure, na-experience mo na rin yon if you're listening right now. Alam kong naranasan mo na yon at some point in your law school life. Now, in addition, law students should avoid drinking coffee before bedtime in order to prevent it from destroying their circadian rhythm or yung tinatawag natin na body clock or sleep-wake cycle. Because according to studies, even a small amount of caffeine delays a person's sleep by 40 minutes. So talagang hindi ka talaga makakatulog. Imaginein mo yon, almost 1 hour yung tinatanggal niya or yung dinedelay niya sa tulog mo. Before I knew all these information, life taught me the hard way. I had this bad habit of drinking a cup of black coffee at 11 p.m. So considering the scientific findings or reports that I just told you can only imagine what time the next day I would usually fall asleep. Tirik na talaga yung araw, gising pa ako, dun pa lang ako matutulog. Nagsipagtilaok ng mga manok ng kapitbahay, matutulog pa lang ako. So you really have to consider, cutting off your caffeine or coffee intake, well, at least in relation to your sleeping time. Tip number 3, dim or turn off your lights. Did you know that when you are exposed to light in any degree of brightness, your melatonin secretion is affected? And just so you know, melatonin is the hormone affecting your body clock or sleep-wake cycle, yung pinag-uusapan natin kanina. It influences your ability to fall asleep. Yun ang ginagawa ng hormone na yun. So if you want to help your body to fall asleep more easily, I suggest you consider implementing this tip later when you sleep. Try nyo. Baka makatulong. Tip number 4. Keep your phones or electronic devices away. Mobile phones and other mobile devices emit blue light. Now, this light contains blue wavelengths, which are considered useful during daytime because they have been reported to boost attention, reaction times, and mood. Unfortunately, these same benefits are also the ones that disrupt a good night's sleep. Studies show that blue light coming from your cell phone and other mobile gadgets suppresses melatonin production, which is needed for humans to fall asleep. Na-discuss naman natin yun kanina. So when you're on your mobile device, don't be surprised if you can't fall asleep that easily. Kaya naman sa mga katulad ko dyan, na mahilig pang magbabrowse-browse ng kung ano-ano sa phone, nandun na sa kama, nakaset na, matutulog na lang, I really implore you to consider this tip para talaga makatulog kayo ng mas madali. Ako guilty as charged ako nito, lalo nung first few months ng pandemic. Akala ko kasi, pag ginawa ko to, yung magbabrowse ako ng phone ko, mag-check ako ng emails, gagawa-gawa ako ng to-do list using my mobile phone, feeling ko makakatulog ako kasi mapapagod yung mata ko, aantukin ako. Pero the opposite happened. So, this is basically the reason why. Tip number 5. Adjust your bedroom's temperature or freshen up before hitting the sack. Doctors suggest that good sleep is achieved when a certain temperature is maintained. This temperature makes humans fall asleep easier and get more meaningful sleep. And according to experts, ideally, it's best for us to set our thermostat to more or less 20 degrees Celsius or 68 degrees Fahrenheit for greater results. If you can be precise and achieve this using your air conditioning system, well, good for you. However, kung katulad ko na wala naman akong aircon sa bedroom ko, you have to be more creative. So, paano yung mga tulad nating wala namang aircon sa kwarto? Well, here's something I always do to feel more comfortable at bedtime. I hit the shower 30 minutes before sleeping. So, itong time frame na to, ako lang naman ang may gusto nito. Wala naman akong nakikitang scientific basis dito. Pero this allows me enough time to dry my hair, to do, simple skin routine before sleeping. And it cools my body down, leaving me feeling refreshed. Tapos after ko nga mag-shower ng ganito, nagawa ko na lahat, nakapag-brush na ako and all that. Alam mo, aantokin ka na parang, ay, nako, nakaka-relax. Gusto ko nang matulog. Now, if you don't want to take a shower, you may consider opening your bedroom's window to allow fresh air to enter and circulate inside para mas maging ventilated yung room mo. Unless, of course, you have certain security issues or restrictions that require you to have them closed all the time. Tip number 6. Set a particular time when to sleep. Now, here's the fun part. What most of us don't realize or don't know is that we can actually control, to some extent, how and when are we going to sleep. Yes, you heard that right. Like any other habit, a specific hour for bedtime may be learned over time through repetition. It is always up to you how to go about it. Like sa case ko, I'd set my sleeping time at exactly 12 midnight. I really can't sleep earlier than that because of the workload and law school tasks that I have to accomplish. Pero, ikaw, bahala ka. Basta wag lang yung sobrang late. Setting a specific time for sleep is actually a great way for us to nudge our body to adopt a consistent bedtime routine. Tapos, ang nangyari sa akin nun, as soon as I got accustomed to my 12 midnight bedtime, eventually, kahit wala na akong reminder, I would feel sleepy whenever the clock strikes 12. Hindi ko alam, pero siguro yun na nga, naging habit siya, na program yung katawan ko to do that. Tip number 7. Get rid of bedroom or background noises. Now, these noises can distract us at bedtime as much as our mobile phones do. So you really need to get rid of or minimize these noises as much as practicable. As for me, I always love to improvise. I have this air cooler that creates this loud yet clean sound. Sinabi kong clean kasi parang it blocks off all the noises within my area. So for me, yun ang ginagamit ko para lalo ako makafocus sa pagtulog. Kasi nawawala, kung may nagchichismisan sa background, may nagpapatugtog ng music, it really blocks off the ambient noise. So it has really helped me sleep better ever since my dad gave that to me. But as for you, it's all up to you kung paano mo gagawin. You can play soft music, you can play your favorite music na feeling mo yun yung lagi nagpapatulog sa'yo. Or you can also wear earplugs. The possibilities are endless. And last but not least, tip number 8, time management. Now, we always neglect this aspect. Minsan, hindi talaga tayo nakakatulog on time. Gustuhin man natin, may iset man tayong schedule because we fail to make use of our time productively. So, ano nangyayari sa atin? We try to compensate for the wasted time, so to speak. So, for example, you told yourself, I'm going to do this specific law school task on this specific time of the day. But instead of doing that, kung ano-ano ginawa mo, or pwede rin naman na you did something and that activity took up much of your time. So, yon, doon tayo nadadali. So, anong nangyayari? Inuurong natin yung tulog natin just to compensate for that time na lumipas. Kasi parang feeling natin, nakaka-stress na wala tayong nagawa. Parang feeling mo napaka-useless mo. 'Di ba? Familiar kayo doon? Ako nangyayari sa akin yun eh. So, if this is something na ginagawa mo, this is actually the bigger picture. So, apart from the tips that I mentioned kanina, maybe it's about time you look into this aspect of your life. Yung paggamit mo ng time mo. Yung pag-manage mo ng time mo. So, there you have it. If you find this episode useful, please consider sharing them with your classmates or other law school friends. And if you want more law school tips, hacks, inspiration, or resources, feel free to log on to www.totallylegal.com. Totally is spelled out as Totetally. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, Pinterest, and YouTube. And of course, here on Spotify. Alright? So, I hope you have a good and productive week ahead. Good luck on all your recitations and exam. And I'll talk to you soon.